Writing a Personal Narrative, Episode 3, Writing an Introduction. A personal narrative is a true story about your life. You write about something that has happened to you. An introduction is the first few sentences of your story. It can also be called the opening or the lead. We write introductions to hook the reader. We want the person reading our story to be interested and excited to read more. There are a lot of different ways you can hook a reader. I'm going to show you 4 different ways. The first way you could hook a reader is to start your story with a sound. These are called onomatopoeias. For example, you might start your story by writing, "Boom! I heard a loud crash in my house." The reader would wonder, I wonder what that crash was all about. They would be interested to read the rest of your story. Another way you could hook the reader is by starting your story with talking. This is called dialogue. For example, you could start by writing, "Go away, I told my brother." The reader would probably want to read more to find out what your brother was doing. You could also start your story by asking the reader a question. For example, you could ask, "Have you ever been to a water park?" This would help the reader make a personal connection to your story. People are more likely to like stories that they can relate to. And last, you could start your story by describing the setting. The setting is where and when your story happens. For example, you might write, "One dark, stormy night last weekend, I was home alone." Ooh, I bet the reader would want to read more about what happened on that dark and stormy night. So now I have several options about how to start my story. The story I am writing is about getting a new dog. I think I want to start my story with a question. I'm going to write, "Have you ever felt so happy you could cry?" That's how I felt last summer when my mom told me I could get a dog. I had wanted a dog for so long, I couldn't believe I was finally going to get one. Hopefully, people will read the introduction to my story and they will be hooked. They will want to read more. That's it. Check out episode 4 to see how I write a draft of the rest of my story.
Okay, so this is where if you have some blank paper at home, that would be great. If you don't, then I guess you could type on Seesaw, but I would prefer that you did this on paper. It can be any paper. It does not have to be lined. And I will send you a picture of your plan. So if you remember in class, we made a plan for our pre-writing. So for me, my plan is I'm writing about my snorkeling trip. So I had how I felt about it. It was excited. And then I had to write some details about it. So I said getting on a catamaran and putting on gear, snorkeling and seeing animals. We went to a private island and then going back to its ship. So now thinking about that video about an introduction. So she said I could use a sound. So make it some sort of a sound, a dialogue, a question, or a setting to start my story. And I like to call it a hook because when you go fishing, you use a hook to catch a fish. You want to lure them in so that they come and they want more. That's what we want to do with our readers, with our writing. We want to hook them so they want to keep reading our story. So we want to try to get them excited about it right away. So on this one, just to kind of show you guys my story, I'm just going to use a text tool here and I'm going to type my story so you guys can get an idea. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger here so we can see it. So I'm looking at those and I was thinking, well, I could use a sound. I'm trying to think back to when we were getting ready to go snorkeling if I could hear anything. And there weren't really a lot of sounds. I did have some questions because I had never been snorkeling before, so I could think about that. I will say we were on a beautiful tropical island, so I could talk about where we were, but I actually think I'm going to use the dialogue. And the dialogue is where somebody is talking, and the person talking in my story, because we're writing a personal narrative, I'm actually going to start with what I said. So I'm going to start like this. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited, I said. So I'm hoping by saying, oh my goodness, I'm so excited, I'm hoping that my reader is wondering what it is that I'm excited about. That is what I'm hoping for. I'm not done though. I'm going to go on a little bit more here and say, my friend Becky and I were about to go on our first snorkeling adventure. So I'm going to go reread that to make sure it all makes sense. So, oh my goodness, I'm so excited, I said. My friend Becky and I were about to go on our first snorkeling adventure. So I haven't really started telling the story yet. It's just kind of that introduction, we call that, the hook, the lead. What I can do to try to get my reader, you or anybody else who's going to read my story, interested in what I'm going to read. So what I would like you to do is find a piece of paper, and I want you to look at your topic, and I would like you to decide how could you start your story. And you would need only 1 or 2 sentences, just to get it started. And then tomorrow or this week, we will be able to go back and write a little bit more. Happy writing. I can't wait to see what you come up with.